Okay.
Hi, guys. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And do roll call first.
Mrs. Petropoulos,
Here.
Mrs. Levanter,
Here.
Mrs. Lamb, absent, Mrs. Grove.
Here.
Mrs. Schroeder. Here. Mr. Medina.
Here.
Mrs. Bergen, absent.
Pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fantastic. Do we need to do this
Secretary Pro
first?
Tem, yes.
So, in Tiers' absence, we need to nominate I don't really know what happened there, a secretary pro temp.
I nominate Joanne.
I'll second. Mrs. Levanter,
Aye.
Mrs. Grove. Aye. Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. Mr. Medina.
Aye.
And Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. Okay, and then we have some guests
Yes,
tonight.
yes. So we have the majority of our administrative team. Some of them are actually at the PTA meeting over at Ridge Lawn right now. So we're missing a couple of them. But the rest of our guests, I believe, are all from our award-winning declamation team from Finley Junior High. So we're gonna head on up for a second. If you'd like to come with me, Mr. Fellows. Mr.
Working my way
Youngberg,
downtown.
come up and- So I'm very excited. This year we've had the chance to award a couple of teams from Finley Junior High this year for sport for winning conference and having very, very good years. I think I had the first time. We first place in our conference for the declaration event. Let's get off to that. It's been 8 or 9 years since we started in the top of that declaration event, and I remember going to those first events. Mr. Field has always worked extremely hard to prepare this team, but back then, our team consisted of 1, 2, maybe 3 people we were lucky to get in here. And you saw how hard we worked, and saw how hard we worked. And so it is it's a great pleasure to see it pay off, not only Mr. Field do it, but also for all of our students who competed. They say all the time that public speaking, people would rather do almost everything else other than public speaking. But you guys like doing this watch. That is one of those skills that you will have for the rest of your life. It will help you with just about every situation you are in. So Mr. Field, I would like to congratulate you on behalf of Board of Education. But we also, and it's so nerve-wracking when we look for you, but give you a chance to say a word. We do have like a 2-hour time.
So, before I out the reports, I just wrote something down. I want to thank you all for recognizing what these amazing, brilliant young people have done. Dr. Thorne said it's public speaking, it's second only to death. And they come and they show up and they do such a big job. I'm just gonna read that one because I don't want to spoil it. We started this in 2015, 2016. I had no idea what I was doing. I had never heard of declination. I went to Shepherd, if they had it, I had no idea. For the first day of the very first competition, I knew this was done. It's how held in March. We started this thing at home. So needless to say, we're all playing. And we push it through. I'm so the way this working back. By the end of the year, I'm so tired. We are. But when you watch these kids form this very difficult task, invigorating is not strong enough. I'm running out of fumes, while I'm running out of fumes, when you see them doing what they do. My kid is full, the very next day, I'm looking forward to next year. No, not right. Watching you all form the encouraging now, the national support for each other, and just with your family, people from other schools. It's something bold, and I'm honored to see.
We have some certificates we would like to pass out. If your name is called, please come up, and then we're gonna want to take a team picture at the end, so people line up here.
Morning. Beyond the line. All. David Martin.
No, I'm not just saying, like, Mr. Field said, I just want to say thank you to him for doing such a great job for these kids in every single day. It's truly, like you said, a difficult, not easy task to do. And he really jumped in both feet and he built the program up and the team up every single year. So just congratulations, Mr. Field and his team. Further information, parents want to take a quick picture? 2023. What I am very excited about, those learning in 7th and 8th graders, you know, some of you have already started working on your season. Those who want to continue doing this, Richard has a fantastic second program, so it's something I hope you will fall in love with and will continue. We have an entire agenda for the rest of the night. You are more in love, we hear all about curriculum and paying bills. But if you also want to get out and enjoy the weather, now we'll take time to do that. So congratulations again and a wonderful weekend.
Great job, thank you. Mr. Peel. They'll love you guys at Richards on their speech team. Okay, so we're gonna move to 3.0 donations to the district.
Yeah, we are really excited. I received a phone call and an email just right before spring break, and they're opening up a Burlington coat factory in the Chicago Ridge Mall. And they called and said, we want to provide a $5,000 donation to the staff of the building that is closest to the mall, and Ridge Central is 0.1 miles closer. So basically what it is that the teachers will get kind of almost like a gift card to go on this online shop to get materials for their classroom. So they're also going to have the ribbon cutting ceremony on Friday, May 31st. We don't know time or details other than that's the day. So we'll make sure we have a contingent out there and smiling and very, very excited for that. But anything over the $500 mark, we have to get approved. So this is just a little bit over $500. So we'd be looking for approval.
Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion. Mrs. Grove. Aye. Mrs. Abbott.
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. And Mrs. Jones.
Aye. 4.0 approval of the consent agenda. I'll make the motion.
Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. Mr. Medina. Mrs. Alexia? Aye. Mrs. Randall absent, Mrs. Charles?
Aye.
Mrs. Rowe?
Aye. Okay, 5.0 superintendent's report.
Yes, so my reports are pretty quick tonight. Actually, tonight, the majority of the meeting, Mrs. Nothnagel will be presenting the ELA curriculum. And so that's something we've been working on for quite a while. But the PTA update, as I said earlier, they're having a meeting at Ridge Lawn right now. They do have the glow party at Ridge Lawn on Friday from 6 to 8. I've never been to a glow party before, so I'm sure I will have lots of stories afterwards, but I think it's going to be very well attended. We also, the staff is volunteering to work at McDonald's, the one in Oak Lawn on Wednesday, April 17th. Everyone is, lots of teachers are taking different shifts. I think I have like the 4 to 5 shift or something. So this will be my second time working there. It will probably be about the same number of hours as I put in when I first worked there. So, but it should be fun. It's a nice fundraiser, and hopefully we'll get a lot of people to come out. And I know tonight they're kind of planning end of year activities, things like that. Enrollment report has stayed pretty consistent. We have an increase of 1 student from last month. We're now at 1,464 students, and that is an increase of 2 students over this time last year. So very, very consistent. Vacant positions and possible staffing needs. The main thing we're continuing to look for is our special education teachers. We have had some interviews lately. Unfortunately, so is everybody else. So a lot of what we're getting is I've got 3 more interviews this week, and then I'm going to make a decision. And I think that's anyone who's working in education right now knows that that's what's out there. But I will say there's been good candidates. In the past, we've really struggled to even see that, but we've had some quality people come in and interview with us. So hopefully we'll find the right fit and be able to fill those positions. 5.4 8th grade end of the year events at Findlay. There are tons of events going on over the next couple of months. I have our sign-in sheet, which for the first time has 2 sides. So I'll begin just kind of passing that around. But 8th grade specifically, we do have the 8th grade banquet on Friday, May 17th at 6:30 p.m. right here at Garden Chalet. The entire board is invited. Usually we have some board members who come and just have dinner, watch a little bit of dancing, and then we let them have their fun. But so hopefully we can have a good representation for that. And then 8th grade graduation this year is on Tuesday, June 4th at 7 p.m. at Richards High School. Definitely would like to see some board members for that. If you could RSVP to Lori by May 1st for the banquet, and then as we get closer to graduation, we'll send out exact details for you. 5.5 online registration opened up on March 15th, and we've had quite a few people already register. However, we've also realized that the mail is extremely slow. I know some of you have not received yours in the mail yet. So we were supposed to end this Friday, discounted registration rates. I'll be sending an email out no later than Wednesday, just kind of announcing that we're going to extend that at least until the end of this month. Dodd put these things in the mail on March 15th. And she went to the post office on 111th and Worth to drop those off. And it's still, I know some of you, I can see your house from my office and still have not received that. So hopefully we'll see that people are getting it. We are also going to be sending out, I believe tomorrow morning, that kindergarten registration is going to be held in person on April 22nd at Ridge Central and April 23rd at Ridge Lawn. There's going to be a second date that will be determined at a different time, but we're excited to kind of bring in kindergarten roundup and get people back into the building so that they are a little bit more comfortable when it's time to start. Any questions on registration or anything like that?
Are we gonna be putting out like another reminder?
For
Like,
registration?
For registration. Because if they're not checking email or something, then they don't know that they should be expecting this letter.
Yeah. You mean like in, as far as like Dojo or,
Something.
yeah, so when I send it out, we can also send a quick text message for those of you who, are
Okay.
yeah.
That's good.
So now in our system, all we have to do is click a button. We try to not do that all the time. My son's school sent 8 text messages on Friday. So I just shut them off. So when I do get something important, so we try to use it, but I think this is important enough that could be sent out.
Yeah, I did have a question. I'm one of the people who does not have my things, but due to user error, I threw it out. Because in the past, you could just go on
Yep.
to our
Mhm.
school's grading system and easily do it, not have to have the code. I feel like we're gonna run into issues because maybe everyone else throws out piles of mail
Yeah.
too. That you have to have the SNAP code to be able, you can't just go on to Power School and see all of your children.
Yeah.
So I don't know in the future. I mean, for new people, I get, but I was just
Yeah,
curious.
and just saying, that one of the reasons that they're mailed this year instead of just sent home is a residency check.
Oh,
Because we
yes.
get lots sent home and then that kind of sets some red flags for us to check.
No, that's a fantastic idea, but then, well, I guess it's a conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you.
5.6, we have to do this every year. We need to approve the consolidated district plan. This really doesn't change any of our grants or impact them. Other than by filling this out, we then don't have to fill out every single of the 12 grants, the individual information. So the thick grant is included in your packet, but we would be looking for approval for that. And then finally, 5.7, as you know, we went a couple years ago to the one-to-one with student devices with our Chromebooks, and they're on a 3-year replacement cycle. Each year, kindergarten, 3rd and 6th grade, students receive their new devices. We received 2 different quotes at 2 different prices. The one was about $350. The other was $341. We are from the technology department actually recommending the one that's a little bit more. The softwares or the actual equipment, the hinges are a little bit stronger, and that's one of the things we continue to see that is breaking, as well as the keyboard. So we figured to spend a little extra money. Hopefully, we won't have to spend as much then to replace and just in man hours of getting those ready for replacement. So, and then finally, 5.8 is a reminder again that Cook County Statement of Economic Interest must be completed by May 1st. If anyone has any questions about that, please feel free to see myself, Kathy, or Lori. Be happy to sit down and kind of walk you through that, whether it's today or at another time between now and May 1st. And then I do actually have an other. As a reminder, we have the recognition dinner at Gaelic Park for our retirees and those with certain number of years of service. And that is on Thursday, May 9th. And Lori, when is that due back? Okay. Okay. All right. Being recognized, yes. I believe Mrs. Lammel and Mrs. Petropoulos are both being recognized for 5 years of service on the Board of Education. So we're looking forward to it. So, and we are starting a little bit earlier this year. We're starting at 5:30 on that for our just kind of our get together hour before dinner. All right, Mrs. Nothnagel.
So 6.1 is the ELA textbook curriculum adoption presentation. So I will be presenting on the big screen behind you. Okay, so we first want to talk a little bit about the why. Why did we go through that process, or why did we go through this process? And so I listed 3 reasons. Some might be obvious to you, others might not, but we definitely want to align to new current research you might have if you're in the educational world, or if you heard anything recently about things like science of reading or the reading war. There's a lot out there right now, so we wanted to make sure that as a district, we are up to date on those resources being aligned to the most recent research. We want to update our current resources. So I did in the district for 7 years, and the previous resource that we had was adopted prior to me being here. So it was something that definitely the timeline and process needed to take place. Maybe before this year, but it was a good opportunity for us to get started with it. And then reason number 3, we definitely wanted to have a resource that was aligned to our current vision and mission in the district, and that it is aligned across the district. And we have this cohesive instruction for all kindergarten students through 8th grade students across the district, so that as our students progress through the district, they have that consistency from grade level to grade level, but also that all of our students are getting similar instruction and content within their grade level as well. So here's the timeline that we took. And we actually started this committee about a year ago. So we started it in the spring of 23. And we wanted to really begin learning about the research practices around teaching and learning in ELA. And that's what the committee really started with. So we looked at what are these research practices, what's out there right now. Some of those buzzwords, we did a lot of learning around the different types of research that are being presented, and really get an understanding of what they are, and then really had a conversation about how it aligns to our district, or which one aligns to our district more specifically, and what are we looking for. In the fall of this year, we started to, research and learn about what resources are out there and get a better understanding. So the staff sat through many different presentations from many different companies. And they'll try their best after each one to align it to that spring work that we did with the learning. And they actually determined what resources they wanted to pilot based on their experiences and their learning. So they chose HMH into reading and into literature. Those are K-5 and 6-8 resources. And then the second pilot was McGraw-Hill at the elementary, and Amplify was a different resource that came. And that was based on their feedback and their learning that they did at the prior. So we did have 3 goals that we wanted to accomplish. These goals are stemming from a survey that was sent out to the staff a year ago. So all of our teachers had an input on this committee, and then we had representatives from all 3 of the schools on the committee as well as from many grade levels, spanning from kindergarten to 8th grade, out, special education. And the goals that we really determined, there were a lot of needs, a lot of wants. But the goals were that we are looking for a rigorous and engaging text that meets all students' needs. We wanted something that allows teachers to give direct instruction with integrated spiral lessons. The spiral lessons means that you're not just going to get nonfiction text in October and not read or get instruction on that again. The teachers really wanted fiction and nonfiction, writing and spelling to be really kind of truly spiral in throughout the year, so that if we think about that 5th grader that might have gotten fiction in the fall, they're not going to get in a non-spiral curriculum. They wouldn't have gotten fiction instruction until 6th grade fall. And if the student transfers in past the fall, then they miss all of the instruction for fiction. So we were really looking for a resource that allowed that integration into spiral. Goal 3 is built on the science of reading. So that's about that reading more that we're talking about. This is where we're really focusing on phonics and phonemic awareness, instruction, and foundational skills instead of the discovery and the wondering of reading. We really want to be able to be explicit and direct with that instruction and teach kids how to read, how to sound out words, how to build words with letters and letter sounds, and that's the research and learning that they did in the spring of last year to determine that 3rd goal. So the pilot started in the winter of this year, and the K-5 teachers piloted HMH and McGraw-Hill, and the 6th grade teachers had piloted HMH and Amplify. And from that, during that pilot, they piloted probably about a month. It was a very short pilot, and what we really wanted to gain out of that pilot was the engagement of the students with the lessons, and is it aligned to what we're trying to accomplish, and then the usability from the teacher side of things. All resources will tell you their standards aligned, all resources will give you all development visuals, but we really wanted to get some exposure from the student perspective and the staff. So we had some staff members that piloted during the school day, and then we had some that didn't have classes. They were, specialty teachers or specialists, reading specialists, so they ran it for after school clubs to see how they could use it during after school to really weigh in on it. It's also a really creative way to pilot, knowing that they didn't have to have the rigidity and the regimen of like a traditional pilot where they are so focused on every lesson of every day to try to get through a certain amount. That wasn't the goal, but really trying to get that exposure. So we did want to highlight some positives or some things, some content within each of those resources. So you'll see that here, and McGraw-Hill, there are some definitely some things embedded in it, vocabulary. There was an EL component, and this is all feedback from the teachers, from the pilot teachers. Writing, grammar, reading, spelling, and average text, common assessments, HMH. These are some highlights that the teachers had shared. There's foundational skills embedded. The stories were really engaging. We see content areas, writing, grammar, reading, and spelling throughout your module. Decodable and text that are embedded, common assessments, and then Amplify and highlight where that there are writing journals, vocabulary embedded, and app to support and common assessments. And these are highlights that I feel it's very important that you see that the team, the committee really did a lot of work to provide this feedback for us. We sat and they had rubrics after each pilot, it was 5 domain, rubric that they had to find, within each area about 5 different, components. They had to break down out of 3, making sure that that resource is meeting all of those needs. And then we had a committee meeting after where they shared that information. We put all that data in a, data, a Google form to be able to present like a graph to them so they can see kind of that feedback that we received. We really wanted it to be data driven and really wanted it to come from them, so that they were the ones that were invested in this resource, because they're going to be the ones that are using it the most. And we wanted their input, we wanted their feedback. So the recommendation out of all of that work was that we are going to recommend to the board to purchase next month, hopefully, the HMH, which is into reading for K-5 and into literature 6-8. It is the exact same company, so the report will flow nicely from K-8. I know that was something that we had talked about in a different setting before. And the teachers shared a lot of input on why they chose it. So I really would like to highlight those areas so you know confidently where this recommendation is coming from. So the first why is that it is a rigorous and engaging lesson, has rigorous and engaging lessons text and meets all students' needs. I have a lot of bulleted areas there that you obviously can read in the report packet that you have in front of you, but some of the information that we had heard from these teachers is that it is the text, the stories were very engaging. The students after, especially the 6th or 8th grade students, had asked that once they were done with the second pilot, so they piloted HMH first, if they could go back to HMH, because they really thought the text and the stories were good to read, fun to read. They have lessons that are prior to the start of a lesson, a start of a unit that builds background knowledge, which is something we hear a lot about. Our students don't have that background knowledge. So the company has really built within the resource the opportunity for some of that prior knowledge building before that unit even starts. Lots of different modalities, so a lot of different opportunities for students. There's visual, there's auditory listening, kinesthetic opportunities within each module. There's vocabulary embedded, and the vocabulary is in each of the stories, or some of it is spiraled throughout, so they're hearing it in more than one text. They're not hearing it in isolation. Daily opportunities for writing, and the students were really engaged in those writing components as well. And HMH has a consumable book, so the stories that they'll read are actually, they're able to annotate and write right on them and respond in the moment. There's note sections, like a blank piece of paper next to the story, so the students can ask and answer questions. They can draw pictures of things that they're visualizing. They can highlight within the text because that's theirs as they're going through. So it's really a learning resource for them, and the teacher can really focus on having them have that in front of them instead of just a read aloud book where they're kind of showing the text in front of everyone, all 30 students or 25 students sitting in front of them. The students can actually physically engage with the text. And something I like is that they have what they're calling communication lessons, where it actually teaches those speaking and listening standards that sometimes we have a difficult time embedding in a different resource within HMH. They're embedded in the weekly lessons. Our second reason is that it did meet that goal of direct instruction with the alignment of spiral lessons. So the teacher, it is a basal, so there is that consumable book that the students have that they're reading from, and the teacher does have a teacher's manual, and it does suggest different components to highlight through stories that they're reading. It says, please make sure you bring students' attention to this, or here's how you present this feature of a text. It has a lot of teacher support, and the teacher said that it's really the usability of it is very nice as well, which is something that we would want them to feel comfortable with. They have tabletop mini lessons, so these little tents, the spiral book that sits on a small roof table that teachers can use. And it has on the back of the book, on the front is an anchor chart, so visual to describe a vocabulary word or a concept or strategy, a skill, and then on the back is a lesson. And the teacher can read the lesson and teach the lesson right from it. So there's a lot of opportunities for teachers to have guidance on what to teach and how to teach it if they're struggling with that. It is going to be a transition, but that's not the type of resource we currently have. So there's going to be some learning, but this is almost more of a traditional way of teaching. So some of these teachers who have been teaching for more than 10 years probably taught from a resource similar to how this is structured.
Is that the same, like, was K through 8, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Middle school, they did, it's like,
So they don't have the tabletop as a product, but they do have opportunities online. So their they have student books, hardcover books, and they have some consumables too for writing and then for grammar practice, things like that. But on the other side of the teacher aspect, student aspect that I'm kind of referring to, K-5, is online. So they have anchor charts online, they have mini lessons, small group instruction online, EL, differentiated support online. So the teacher would just have to pull that up, either on their bench board or on their device in front of the teacher at a small group table to refer to it.
okay, and do they have the consumables, like the workbooks and things to do that?
So they do not, it's not the same, they have a hardcover text, and then they have a supplemental resource that goes along with that, that supports like grammar, practice, things like that, but it's not the identical, where it's embedded in one, it's two separate.
The supplemental resources that a workbook, or what is it?
It never considered a book,
Okay,
yeah, so it's more of worksheet pages within, that the story is not within it. So in the elementary K-5, the story is there and then the writing.
Yeah.
Here, the students they have a textbook where the story is there, and then they're doing some practice and writing here, and then they have some online, it's called Writable, where they're doing some written responses online where the teacher can kind of respond immediately to in a kind of a chat form as they're writing their writing. Yeah. And I do have examples, so I want to put those all out. You can have those 6 to 8 examples, but it is different, K-5 to 6 to 8. Yeah. And then the last reason is that there are plenty of curriculum resources. So there is definitely an abundance, and we see a lot of different books that teachers, resource books like written response books or workbook books, like we were kind of referring to. Black and white masters are called, where you make copies from, things like that. So there's a lot there. There's a lot with this resource. There are assessments, there's checkpoints, there's end of unit, there's a lot of different opportunities. And as I mentioned, teacher resources are very user friendly, and the teachers will have online access, and students will have online access, and then they'll have those different resources depending on their grade levels. Okay, and so here are some positives, just kind of summarizing that we do have print and digital resources available for all students. There are small group differentiated options to support all learners, students, and staff. They report that the students found the stories of high interest, that they're finding resources, that they're rigorous, that it's standards aligned. And it does support our district vision and mission. Some challenges that we will have to, and already have started to plan for are some of these deltas at the bottom. The challenges are a lot of context with limited time. So when you have all of those resources, you really have to make a conscious decision and share that out and communicate that to the staff of what they need to be doing and then what is extra to support. So that's definitely guidance that we'll be giving the staff. The staff had said that the assessments are lengthy, especially like the end of the year, or what we consider the end of the module. So that's where we come in as an admin team, working with our teacher leaders to say, okay, why are they lengthy? What questions do we have that our students are successful with, struggling with, and how do we meet their needs? But also we also keep that assessment rigorous. Do we want to consider shortening them in any way without changing and modifying them? The need to learn more about foundation alignment. So HMH does have a foundation of those skills lessons within them. So phonics, so letter sounds and word building, word reading. But we are sticking with foundation still in K4. That's important that the district knows that. It is not something that we are going to move away from, so we really want to make sure that we support that teaching of foundations along with HMH. And support the teachers on how they can do that, even though the resource has those resources within it. And then the junior high shared that they're a little bit concerned about the repetitive routines within the 6-8 model. The lessons start very similar, the first page very similar, the questions are very similar throughout. And that's something that I do plan on working with the junior high to talk about how we teach it. So the repetition and the routine is something that's embedded with HMH, but how can we teach it? Is what we teach is the must here, but how we approach it, how we teach it, is definitely be talked about, discussed, and then made a decision to ensure that our students are continuing to stay engaged with the resource. And just some quotes from teachers that we had on the pilot. And like I said, you can read these, but what we did here is a lot about them liking the resource, liking that there was a good balance of reading and writing embedded in every lesson. That they gained a lot of information from the resource assessment. That they did give, most of them did get a chance to give. And our fifth grade teachers administered that assessment online, and it auto grades and then categorizes the students in groups and identifies areas that the students need assistance in from that assessment. So the teachers found that very helpful, especially to try to meet students' needs in small groups. Everything was laid out in a nice fashion, and it does have daily lessons within the week, within the unit. And that is kept rigor high, but still at an attainable level where the students found success with the stories, the reading, and the work. The second here is we have more, the teachers all were very enthusiastic about in their rubric writing all of this out. So that's where I got these quotes from. They love the writing embedded within it, and we call that on demand. So they can read and write instead of this long process writing that takes that months and months and months to do. We want to do that, but we also want them to have that quick response. And be able to do that in a daily manner, so they both opportunities there, and that the students were engaged and motivated to learn, and that was a great student. So just briefly wanted to show on some visual. This is a teacher's manual with the structure of time. This is a concern of the teacher. How do you take all of this and still put it in a little bit of time that they feel we have for ELA? So I worked on just structuring these minutes and working with the court admin team to ensure that it does align with the schedules that we currently have. The teacher's manual kind of page of level 2, so you can see kind of that structure of vocabulary embedded, small person embedded, that communication lesson that I was talking to you about. I'm really excited to see that, to be able to support teachers. And this is what the student workflow looks like. So we have that first page of preparing to read, and then that last page after story about the collaborative discussion. And this is actually the workbook. So the students write right in here. And they kind of get that practice of like, go back, find your evidence, reread this paragraph, share some of your evidence on why you thought that from your reading. And then some student tips on listening and speaking. Again, something that is really difficult to teach directly, but should be embedded in every lesson. So they give some suggestions on that as well. And just a couple more opportunities to see what the student side of it looks like, responding to text, and then some helpful hints to the students to make that checklist and make sure that they are including all of the components within the written response. And then the junior high, I know you cannot read this, and I completely understand that, but this is the teacher's manual again to let you know just how rich that teacher's manual is with information to be able to guide them through these lessons. The one far side picture with the visual of the eyes on the far right, that's the student side. So you'll see that it has those interactive opportunities, but that's not written in their text. That would either be printable or something that they would just reference throughout. And then here's some more junior high. This is online, so I snipped this from the online. This is how they would engage in that text. Being able to answer the essential question, which is introduced at the beginning of each module. What can blur the line between what's real and what's not real? And I included that question because I think that's a question and a concept that goes beyond just ELA. It's something that's so interesting to know and good to know. When we talk about social media and news and things like that, that the students will be able to decipher by incorporating it into this story. Professional learning, there are many opportunities. I've already been working with the company to schedule some in-person learning for our K-8 staff on getting started with the resource. They also have on-grid going training and then an on-demand library that will be able to be accessed by the teachers throughout the year if they need anything. So there's time for any questions. Yes, maybe we're waiting for that.
I was waiting for that slide. I wasn't gonna interrupt. Okay, so several different questions about several different things. My one thing immediately when I saw this earlier was the fundamentals that we already do. So you guys are going to be kind of investigating. I mean, studies show that vocabulary and context is always better than separately. However, the phonetic aspect I think is important too. So some takeaways, this company, I do agree, I've used their materials before, the BDA style lesson before, during, and after is so crucial. So it was nice to hear that that was on there. In the little pullaways, it didn't mention that there was an EL component, but you're saying there is that resource available that teachers could kind of use to adapt, or Carol, I'd like to help. That was one of my questions. I feel like just based on, you know, the chemical, like the makeup of our district, I feel like that's so important.
Yep, so what I would celebrate with this resource is a lot of things that we would incorporate in EL support way is embedded in the lesson.
Okay,
It's not designated to do this for multilingual learners. It's vocabulary, it's building language, it's building knowledge. Like the first day of the first lesson of the first, every time is building knowledge and language lesson. And then it's vocabulary every day after. And those are things that's what we would say vocabulary is the number one successful point of entry to reading for EL students. However, with that being said, yeah, if you open up the teacher's manual and look in the bottom right-hand side, it talks about the 3 different levels of supports. From a high support to a moderate support to a low support for multilingual learners. And then there's also that same tabletop mini lesson and it's K5, there's a lot of K5. That resource, there's one for EL students as well, called an EL tabletop lesson. And that is really heavy on vocab that aligns to the work that they have to be doing in the actual lesson.
yeah, well, I mean, differentiating on any level
Yeah.
that offers us supports, yeah.
Also was a big one that was supportive of, and we had representatives from all 3 buildings, EL staff in all 3 buildings. Visuals, the ability to have the text in their hands. Also was very highly, the students were very highly successful, all students were very highly successful in having that in front of them that they can approach.
So a couple of questions about assessments, timing of lessons, other little things. Grammar's on here. Traditionally, I don't know that people teach grammar like they used to, which I think is a huge detriment. Can you talk more? Is it embedded within stories? Is it grammar in context, outside of context? How is it used in this textbook?
So within HMH, there's 2 forms of writing lessons. One is called the on-demand, so the students are writing regularly. We don't see as many direct explicit instructions on grammar in that component, but there's writing opportunities. They give those suggestions like, did you write in a complete sentence? Did you use some self-checks? Then the second component is a writer's workshop, teacher's manual as well. The district will be recommending that we buy as well. And those are that process writing that has editing and peer writing. Those are lessons that are more explicit to making corrections and punctuations and all the things that you would see in lessons of grammar. Then there's a book called Know It and Show It that has the old, grammar lesson of look at this sentence, if it needs a capital, fix the capital letter. So there's different levels of instruction. One that's almost very natural, very embedded, to very explicit, very isolated as
Okay.
well. And so the district will purchase one copy, or we recommend that you purchase one copy of that Know It, Show It, so that teachers, if they feel that the students need more of that repetition, that direct instruction, they can make copies of that. But then throughout, if they can, self-check and direct the students to say, hey, let's look at this checklist. Did you do these things that can guide towards that? So
Okay,
there's
I was
different
just curious how it was handled. I mean, never at a stop sign do I have to know what an adverb is. But anyone in the world needs to know how to punctuate a sentence, and if you don't know what an adjective is, and then a comma can go in between, like, it's tricky. So I've always come from the school of thought that grammar should be taught directly as well as embedded, so.
And the junior high does have the 6th through 8 does have a explicit grammar practice book. That's what it's called. It's all grammar. And so that would be something I would recommend we purchase at least one copy for the junior high teachers, that they can have that opportunity. That's something I hear from our junior high teachers.
So you talked about common assessments that were given, and then you had mentioned that they're done online and graded, so I'm assuming that they're multiple choice. Are you able to manipulate them, or are teachers personally able to manipulate them, or is this going to be something that's standard? Like, to make sure people are covering the right levels of content to, I guess, cross-reference back to the standards that we pulled from the, Common Core.
So they don't have to be administered online. And the online, though there are multiple choice, there are also written response opportunities that can be graded by the teacher. So it'll grade multiple choice, and then into them to approve and grade the written responses. But there are opportunities for that to be printed as well. There's not an assessment book, so the teacher would have to go online, print it. And that's the end module. There's also like checkpoints throughout the lesson. So to answer your question, yes, the teachers can go in and modify them.
Okay,
However, we as a district will make those decisions to ensure that all of our students are given the same assessment. We want to use that end of module assessment as a common assessment, so we want those to remain the same across the district. So we can then have conversation and collect data to see how our students are doing. All of our 5th grade students are doing after the 1st unit, after the 5th unit, after the 6th unit. So we are not going to have the teachers use that modification tool. However, if it comes up after looking at data that we need to consider, like I said, shortening or looking at those assessment questions to see, oh, they all didn't get this right. Why are they getting it right? What are we doing to help them do it differently to ensure that our students are getting what they need? As an admin school, we would be looking at those assessment data. The teachers would be too, and their teachers, but we wouldn't want them going into the assessment and being like, oh, you never not, or change this one. We would want to have a greater conversation as an admin team and say, let's look across the district and make that across the district.
well, I mean, the concept of understanding by design is that you know what your target is at the beginning, so hopefully they would all be doing that. That, I guess, goes to my understanding of flexibility and responsiveness. You showed that chart, and I've had interactions with multiple teachers, even in this year, where they just don't feel like they have enough time. Like social studies and science, like they're not having enough time. And so that was my concern. If we have this grounded assessment and teachers don't have enough time, I feel like we're setting them up. So, allowing flexibility and to see how these lessons play out in real time. And I mean, any responsive teacher, if the kids are not getting it, you might have to do it over or extend it. So that's always my concern when you have a common assessment at the end. I was curious how you were using it. So you kind of led into it. Last thing, consumable workbooks every year instead of a hard copy. How does that affect cost?
So that's a really great question. We actually are able to recommend next board meeting the purchase of this resource for 4 years, which will be paid up, hopefully approved now, where they will auto ship for the next 4 years. So I have met with Kathy to consider that. It's not something that you would have to take on for 4 years beyond this. They would all wrap up into this total this year.
But then at the end of 4 years, we would not get the consumables anymore, as opposed to a hard textbook, which could last 10 years. And I mean, I know you always want to be constantly vetting the curriculum and finding more modern stuff, but I've just, that is
Yep.
sometimes
Yeah.
wasteful.
The same thing with science and social studies. It's
Yeah.
all multiple. That's what it's, and we have to purchase new math workbooks every year.
Yeah.
So we would consider that purchase in the consumable budget.
I didn't know if it was highly more expensive than, because it has the printed stories in it as well, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
I was just curious from a budget standpoint about that.
And if I can just add, to that, it's actually, it probably, I don't know exactly the dollar amount that would come out to. However, the purchase of a textbook is significantly higher than a purchase of a workbook. So that's one thing. Also, what we noticed is because a lot of this is online, companies are going in and changing things so quickly that textbooks are becoming out of date the very next year. And our students and our teachers are using the online and presenting the online, and it doesn't match our textbook. So a consumable is actually friendlier because if they make any changes, the next year that they copy and print that, you get the newest version and it meets the student's needs where they're at.
I'm just thinking in the old school mind as maybe some of the parents are, so that was
Yeah, I
fantastic.
appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
You had asked a question about, the flexibility and that's something that we definitely want the teachers to have a say in, and that's where we hope they start that conversation in their grade level teams. And they have that discussion about data and all of that, and it comes to the group to have a further conversation. With implementation of math, we really had a pulse on where the teachers at. We just redid our pacing guides for math for the rest of the year, knowing that our teachers are further where they were last year, but they're not nearly where our district pacing guide is. So we have to have a conversation about what we're going to do for the rest of the year. And that's something we'll consider when we implement ELA too. We don't anticipate them getting from start to finish. It's a new report and they'll kind of fumble through it and learning and all of that. But we want to keep a pulse on it, and that's exactly what the admin team and I want to do throughout next year to make sure that they're not struggling to just get through the content, to make sure that on this day they're getting that assessment.
Okay, that totally kind of hit and the other little thing is that, we're always looking to kind of differentiate and scoop up the bottom. And I always like when there's a resource to support kids who might be at the higher end of the differentiation at the class. So you said that there's different types of text that would hit that.
So they have, every student will be exposed to that grade level text, and then they have differentiated lessons through a small group.
Okay.
That meets high, low, all these, whatever you're called advanced, learners, things like that. That will be out, students with IEPs and general as well. So all. Is that for all grade levels? Yeah, including 6 through 8. Yeah.
You done over there? I could come up with another
Got
one.
anything else?
I got a lot of notes.
I know that on one of the pros page, it had marked differentiation, but your sped teachers that piloted this, do they feel like this will be beneficial for their instructional or resource students? And
So
our sped teachers are comfortable with this and ready to go?
yes. So we had actually the teacher that implemented it after school, in her after school academic group. She is a special education teacher. And she said she actually, after she implemented the first week, she let me know that she had fun and so did her students. And she had kindergarten students engaging it. And so she's been a special educator in the district for a very long time, and she highly recommended this resource with knowing that our instructional classes.
And I know MTSS has their own thing, but could this benefit them at all?
So it would not, so if you're like as an intervention, so our reading specialist would not be using this resource, this would really be our core, and what they would be using would be more of an intervention, a separate resource. It will align to it, but if they wouldn't be taking any of the components out of it and doing it in like a tier 2 or a tier 3 kind of pull-out intervention. However, within the classroom, MTSS, where the teacher has a variety of meet the variety of students need, this has an abundance. Right, that teacher to refer to in the classroom.
Okay. I liked on the junior high slide that you put, they had a little SEL list
Yes.
to tie in real life to the story. That was pretty cool.
Well, usually the before part of the lesson does that. It gives the real worldness and like sets the exposition up, which is what I like. I'm surprised that the other books don't. Every literature textbook I have ever done has like an establishing like the background, so.
And do you see yourself as this character and how, what are the traits of this character and then looking inside of yourself as well?
I was curious, like what Richard uses and how this like would help them.
So that's interesting. We are a grade teacher at the junior high had asked that exact question to the grade teacher, Richards. And they don't have like a program. So there wasn't anything that they could say, oh, this is, we use this, you guys. use this. So they have a lot of variety of resources at Richards. But when talking to that Richards teacher, the eighth grade teacher had shared kind of the highlights of this resource, and they had said, yes, this aligns to all of the work that we're trying to accomplish. Writing being very, very much focused at Richards that they were very happy to see the amount of writing that is awesome.
The full essays, they have full essays.
So that's in the writer's workshop lesson, so it's not embedded in, but that is a separate, like 30-minute lesson, which is great at the junior high, because the structure of the ELA component is like 60 minutes and our blocks are 84, so they'll be able to incorporate that process writing lesson pretty regularly within their regular blocks. But yeah, that's all concept, right?
Any other questions on our ELA curriculum?
No, but thanks for always answering all my questions.
It will be on display in the district office for anyone that wants to come and look through them. We have every grade level, so if it's not there and it's something specific you want to look through, I'll put out a different grade levels, but all of the components included so that you can look further and.
Take a deep breath for your second presentation.
Spin around.
It is the special ed textbook committee presentation, specific to the cross categorical classroom that the district is transitioning to next year. So if you remember in the presentation, this is a classroom, the students be self-contained in this classroom from 8 to 3 or 8:10 to 3 o'clock. Where this teacher will be teaching all of their academic areas. So ELA, math, science, social studies, and hopefully life skills, which would be things like putting on your jacket, reading a menu, types of things like that. So the committee formed, let me start with our why. So we really wanted to align the changes in the special education programming for next year. And we needed a resource that was going to meet the needs of our students. So right now, these students are in our district, but our programming doesn't have that separate classroom for them to go to. So with these students, they currently have been using the resources and learning from the resources that we have in district. So we really wanted something to meet their needs in the areas that I had mentioned prior. Our goal was, again, a resource to meet those student needs and a resource that covered all content areas. So a resource that is able to teach science and social studies along with life skills, SEL, math, and so on and so forth. So the committee formed in the fall of this year and started discussing the needs. We reviewed resources and program changes were shared in the winter. And then since then, some of our teachers have been given the opportunity to pilot this resource, really had a discussion about what it is that we need. And then obviously I'm here today to share that we would like to recommend a program called Unique Learning Systems. The highlights of this resource is that it is all encompassing. So it is an online resource that has ELA, math, science, social studies, and life skills embedded into it. So the nice thing about that is the students are not having to get different textbooks out, or not, their routine is going to be the same for all of those academic areas, which is exactly what these students need, is that routine and that predictability within the resource. It is a modified curriculum. So it is not the same resource and curriculum that our students in general education or co-taught or even the instructional classroom will be. This resource is modified to meet those students' needs. And they're grade level bands. We have had this resource in the district in the past, in our pre-K GC classroom. But they're grade level bands that those students will be clustered in order to, use this resource. So it's K2, 3, 5, and it does have a 6-8 component, even though we will not have a cross categorical classroom in 6-8 next year. It is a resource that we'll have in the district that if we need it in the future, they will have that available. So here are some positives, that the students do get exposed to grade level standards without accommodations and acceptability. The student learning profile has those checkpoints and that skill analysis and benchmarking so that that teacher, the special education teacher that was teaching them, can gather that data right from the resource. And be able to set goals, write objectives from those, from that data, be able to make sure that they are progress monitoring or giving those assessments throughout to see that student growth. And that they can view the students cross-curricular. So they're not going to just look at ELA data and math data, they're going to see how those two things interact to see some strengths and areas of growth for the students across all of those curricular areas. And then, as I had mentioned before, it has the same instructional routine throughout all the content areas. So those students can become used to and become adjusted to the instructional routine the teacher is administering throughout the day and then day to day. Some challenges that we are already aware of and already troubleshooting is that this is a completely online open. So that is something that we need to make sure we are prepared for, because there is teacher prep. There is opportunities for resources to be printed and students to engage in some of that tactile, moving Velcro pieces across activities, printing, copying, laminating, students engaging in worksheets. And so there's a lot of prep with it as well. And so this is and staff at Essential, Katie and Emily are working with these teachers already that will be moving into this position next year to make sure that they're fully equipped and trained this year so that they're successful to start the year next year. And we talked, Dr. King and I have talked quite a bit about what we do now to get those first couple of units ready for those teachers so that they can hit the ground running and be super successful with the resource. Just some professional learning opportunities. I've already reached out to the company so that we can be ready, next steps in having those staff members trained. We also are going to recommend that our math coaches get trained in this resource so that they can support these teachers as well, and specifically with that math component of the resource. And like many resources nowadays, they have an online library and free webinars that the teachers can engage in to learn more about that. And that was much quicker, but it doesn't mean that it is not as important. And so are there any questions specific to this report?
I just have one question, and it's probably kind of stupid. But I was just curious with the co-op and stuff, is there part of the district, do they get this curriculum too, like Eisenhower?
They use a different resource.
Yeah, so they have
It's just within these 3 schools.
yes, and again, so what we're really looking to do with this program is bring back kids or be able to keep kids here who don't necessarily need that restrictive of an environment. So when they go there, they need a little bit more help. So they have even more of a modified curriculum at that point. So.
And then when they come back.
Yeah, no, Carrie,
Picking their brain about that a little bit, about some of the components that we might want to use for our kiddos.
you said they have used it in the past? Okay.
So when they get to come back, they'll flow into it pretty easily, that being familiar with it.
I think the hope was that they would never go, and that's why we've adopted having this.
Yeah, and also the hope that we would bring some back,
Yes.
but I think oftentimes when you're bringing students back, it's more of the social aspect and just getting that comfortability with the building again, and then they pick that up. So that was a good question.
And I've talked to the co-op team just to have them, once we get our program up and running, they want to take a look at it too, so they can see when we make our decisions for outside kiddos, if there's something to slide them back into.
I can only assume though that what the co-op uses, I mean, and I don't know for sure. I mean, it's similarly structured, just like the different textbooks offer the same kind of resources, but it's like packaged up a little bit
Yeah.
differently.
And one of the components of this resource is something called symbol sticks. Symbol sticks is a visual for things like want. goes. They're all visuals. We use those a lot with our students. But there's another one called Lesson Mix and another one called, and they're just a slight difference in the visual itself, but to that point, they are all very similar with meeting the needs of the students. What other questions? 6.3, the summer school, summer school prep and planning is all underway. I've been working with Fran and Leanne because summer school will be hosted at undergrad this year. So we're working on entrance and exit and we're keeping up their breakfast, classrooms and things like that. Meeting with, I'll be continuing to meet with them to make sure that we're ready to go, for communication on all of that. Meeting with, Ms. Fabian about, busing, transportation, that's something we definitely want to provide for our families. And then meeting with the administrators about the recreation, those lists and all of that. So we will be sending out communication to families of students who are being recommended, by April 22nd. And that will come directly from the buildings, and the first thing they have to do is commit to the school that they're going to be sending their child to summer school. After that, the school will follow up with a confirmation letter that will give them their bus information, all of the other details that they would need to be, ready for summer school that starts June 11th. So spring break over, here comes summer. That's where we're at with that. But the advocates is being very, very helpful with doing a lot of this work in their room with their staff, with their builders, not with me specifically, but with all that they need to get ready for that, along with me, with Mr. Hillegons and the staff to make sure that the advocates make sure that we're ready, secretaries and things like that for that. Big thing. And then 6.4, I do have another, surprisingly, and I just wanted to share with the board and the community that we did have a very big event this afternoon, the solar eclipse. The district was all of our students and staff with glasses, and we were able to obtain permission from families and reach out and ensure that all of our students were given permission to participate. And we had a really good participation. We had 15 students from the junior high out of all the students not get permission. So it's such a great percentage of students that got to experience that. I know I talked to the elementary staff, and they had students lying down on the ground and just enjoying. Students were really understanding of putting their classes on and really truly getting that experience with staff as well. So one of the things the district would also share with all of you that it's such a great learning opportunity. And our district office also got an opportunity. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Nothnagel.
6.4 other,
That was her.
that was the other 7.0. Chief School Business Official Reports.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the glasses. We really did have a nice time checking that out at the district office. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk about, 7.1, this is the time of year we have our renewal with our Lincoln Way area co-op for our health insurance. And if you remember a few months back, we had a conversation about the rising costs of medical insurance, certainly not just to our district, but overall. So what we did is we did reach out to a neighboring cooperative, which is actually much bigger than ours. It's called EBC. It's the Employee Benefits Cooperative, and it actually has 128 members, and several of them are right in our backyard. A lot of them are our neighbors. And although we started the process months ago, unfortunately, they actually didn't provide us a quote until last week. The good news was the quote was extremely competitive. It's actually lower than what we're paying now. And so that was the good news. The cons to that plan are when you leave an existing co-op, you have to pay 2 months of premiums to cover any sort of run out, they call it. Prior claims that just haven't been submitted yet. So that would cost the district roughly $300,000 if we wanted to go that route. And then the other concern is our cooperative we have now although there's only 18 member districts, our premiums are based on the total cooperative. So we share the risk being lower because we're sharing the risk. As opposed to the EBC cooperative, if two member districts have the identical program, they could be paying two different premiums because if you're a district with high claimants, your premium would increase more than what their benchmark is. On the contrary, if we are a district with very low claims, we could actually see lower benefit increases than the other districts. But I think that the benefit of a cooperative is totally sharing that wealth. And right now, with only getting that quote last week, I think we would need to do a little bit more research. Again, the good news is the cooperative is very competitively priced. If we ever wanted to go further, I would actually like to have both cooperatives come and do a more in-depth presentation. But with the limited information we have, I really wouldn't recommend moving forward with changing. There's just so many moving parts. We have a program that is wonderful. It's a very rich program, HMO zero deductible. So we can get that in another vendor. Our risk would just be a little bit higher.
I'm in full agreement with Kathy on this. She reached out when she should have, it took forever for us to get these quotes. I don't know if we would suggest the same thing next year after we've had a chance to really dive into it and see what the range of those rates have been for some of these districts. But I think right now, we at least know that that's an option moving forward, and you're gonna spend the next year really investing in that.
It's even scary thinking about it. It sounds like auto insurance. If you make too many claims, you're gonna raise it up. Like, that's unpredictable. It's like, that's almost like, oh, well, these people go to the doctor all the time. That's where I don't love that concept of it. Because health insurance, you never know what's gonna happen.
And unfortunately,
Go to the doctor to maintain.
And unfortunately, one or two high claimants can really, really skew that increase in premiums. So that being said, we always do reach out to our current cooperative to find less expensive programs. And so what they were able to do, which is in your board packet, was to present us with different alternative HMO and PPO plans. Overall, they would save us about $66,000 if we decided to go with those two plans. But from an employee standpoint, the downside would be, there would be an increase in the physician co-pays. There would be an increase in some prescription coverage co-pays. The PPO deductible would also increase, and the out-of-pocket maximum would also increase. So I know it's been the board's intention to, provide our district with good insurance, which we have, but what I wanted to do is just give the board the opportunity to make a motion to approve our current renewal, which would be absolutely no change in any sort of benefits to our employees. Or if they choose to do the alternate plan, we would ask you to mention that in the motion, and that would be at the cost of about $66,000 for the district. Any questions on that? Okay, the next 7.2 is our local wellness policy. To be in compliance with our recent food service program administrative review, we needed to develop a local wellness policy, which is in your board packet. And that is actually a template provided by ISB. And once the board approves it tonight, that will be posted on our website. And we will have to review that every 3 years. 7.3 is our renewal for our milk contract. Prairie Farms, who used to be Cloverleaf, is requesting 1 1.89 cent increase in white milk and 1.92 increase in flavored milk for half pints. Unfortunately, this year, they were not willing to negotiate at all. The old gentleman that was there, he is no longer, so I was dealing with someone else. So unfortunately, I was not able to save the district any money on this, but I certainly still competitive rates for our milk program. Always chocolate.
I know, there's the way that flavor, I just wanted.
Oh.
We offered strawberry now.
We always could. And then finally, 7.4, I really just wanted to give the board an update on our joint request for a proposal. Unfortunately, we are still waiting for ISB. We literally started this process months ago, and we knew the process would take a long time because of all of those emergency one-year procurement bids that they put out. Never did we anticipate it taking this long, but it is in the hands of ISB, and we are promised that they are reviewing it. And then the other thing I wanted to bring attention to is when we went out for emergency bid last year, it's only a one-year renewal rather. And we did it in June. So I will be working with ISB because we do need an extension of that. Because when we started summer school last year, we wanted our new vendor. And so summer school would be done by June 30th. And ISB has already assured me that there should be no problem just extending our current contract with Quest until June 30th. Anybody have any questions on any of that?
Is Quest aware that we're waiting on ISB? Like, are they thirsty for signing a new contract?
I would think everyone is.
Okay.
And because our group is rather large, I would think all the vendors are waiting for our bid to come out. Okay, thank you.
The 24-25 consolidated district plan. Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Medina, the second I need the first. Mr. Medina. Mrs. Levante.
Aye.
Mrs. Burrow. Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. And Mrs. Petracca.
Aye. 9.3, potential board action to approve the local wellness policy.
I'll second.
There we go.
Mrs. Levante.
Aye.
Mr. Schroeder. Aye. Mr. Medina. Aye. Mrs. Burrow.
Aye.
Mrs. Petracca.
Aye. 9.5, potential, nope, just kidding, 9.4, potential board action to place ELA curriculum on public display.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second.
Mrs. Burrow. Aye. Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. Mrs. Levante.
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Petracca.
Aye. Now, 9.5, potential board action to place special education curriculum on public display.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Levante.
Aye.
Mrs. Burrow. Aye. Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. And Mrs. Petracca.
Aye.
9.6, potential board action to approve renewal with Lincoln Way area affiliation. I believe we're leaving it that way. Yeah,
No changes?
no changes then.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Mrs. Watson.
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. Mrs. Grove.
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Petracca.
Aye. 9.7, potential board action to approve Prairie Farm Dairy milk contract for white and flavored.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Medina.
That banana milk.
Aye.
Mrs. Watson.
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. And Mrs. Petracca.
Aye. 9.8, potential board action to approve payment to Studio GC in the amount of $45,928.32 for architectural fees.
I'll
Mrs. Watson got a motion for this.
second.
There we go.
Gotcha.
Mrs. Grove.
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Watson.
Aye.
Mrs. Petracca.
Aye. 9.9, potential board action to purchase Chromebooks from IT Savvy LLC in the amount of $168,316.80.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Schroeder. Aye.
gonna
Mr.
explode.
Medina. Mrs. Watson.
Aye.
Mrs. Grove.
Aye.
Mrs. Petracca.
Aye. Okay, so, and are we on 10.0? Yeah, I don't think there is any, but 10.0 is, opportunity for visitors to speak. All right, 11.0. President's prerogative. Although I asked a plethora of questions, I'm still gonna talk. I appreciate you always answering all my questions. I'm the smartest dumb person to ever meet, so I like to think about questions that any person would think of, as well as me as an educator for English, so I appreciate that and your explanation. I kind of reiterate the sentiments of, it was fantastic for the school to offer the eclipse for everyone. I thought that that was just a wonderful experience, something that would be a once in a lifetime, maybe not. I don't know what's going on with I'm not a science teacher, but I just feel like to do it together, to have that moment. And I also have to say, I feel like it takes a lot of effort on the staff to make sure little kids are keeping their glasses on and not burning their retinas out. So what? Yeah, well, I mean, it was hard not to look up. Thank goodness a teacher let me borrow some glasses after school. I just think it was a great thing. I feel like across the world, it was being televised and we were a part of it. And our students had that opportunity and they might not have had it, did we not provide the glasses and they were in the building the whole time. You could still see it at 3, but it was just like, I saw it, it was like the tiniest little crust on the edge. So I appreciate that. I think it was a great opportunity for families to get to do it. The other thing I just want to mention is that I didn't say it previously, but I hope that he listens. Mr. Peel is an amazing professional at Finley Junior High. He monumentally changed my son's life in his time here. And although my son never joined speech, I feel like his dedication to students and to creating a program that it's kind of not an easy buy-in. Kids don't like to talk in front of other people. I have coached forensics for 20 years at the high school level. And as Dr. Thorne said, it is one of the best skills that you could develop, and harnessing a program here. It is extremely competitive in high school. It's an IHSA sanctioned sport. And so I just commend him and the students for doing it. I think that it was wonderful, how great they did. It is definitely a labor of love. It's a long season. Yeah, well, it's a very, even in the high school level, it's a very long season, and it's, it takes students to work on their own as well as with the staff to go over it. Last but not least, you kind of, Mrs. Knopfgang, again, kind of stole what I was going to say, is that spring break's over, we're talking about summer. So the snowball is rolling down the hill faster than you could think. And although it was 71 today, it's the spring of deception. So it is going to be cold on Thursday and raining. But we are at the end of the tunnel. Kids are going to start getting antsy and teachers have to kind of wrap things up. So I know that I could probably speak honestly for the board that we appreciate teachers still going that extra mile and all the activities that are coming up, either via the PTA or that the staff is coming in extra time to do.
It's wonderful and I'm excited to see another really successful year close out. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, we are going to 12.0 adjourn a closed session for the purpose of the discussion of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony at complaint lodged against employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act as defined in the Open Meetings Act, Section 2C1. The discussion of collective negotiated matters between the public body and its employees or the representatives or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees as described in Section 2C2. The discussion of pending or probable and imminent litigation against, affecting, or on behalf of the district as defined in Section 2C11, and the discussion of minutes of prior meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act as defined in Section 2C21 for the purpose of review, approval, or release of such minutes. We will not be discussing security or student discipline during this meeting.
Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. Mrs. Buzzer.
Aye.
Mrs. Earl. Aye. And Mrs. McDonald.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, guys.
Wait, let me tell you.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
All right, so let the record reflect that no other business was discussed other than what was contained on the agenda. Also, let the record reflect that at 8:19 PM, we reconvened into open session.
All right, we have 13.1 potential board action on personal consent agenda. We have Kristen Harmon, music teacher, Milton Arden Vividor, flow custodian, Jason Fisher, special ed teacher from Solient, and a substitute teaching list of Azal Gashim and Monica Pinto Gutierrez.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mrs. Lebudzick,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Okay, aye. 13.2.
Yeah.
Potential board action to award tenure to the following individuals: Julie Colby, second grade teacher at Ridge Central, Danielle Schutz, sorry if I said it wrong, fourth grade teacher at Ridgelawn, Aiden Wagner, seventh grade science teacher at Finley, and Patrick Kelly, band teacher at Finley Junior High.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
And Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mrs. Lebudzick, Budzik,
Aye.
Mr. Medina, and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 13.3, notice of retirement, Wafa.
Abu Ajim Maya?
We don't have to make a motion for that, right?
Nope, just
No.
a notification.
25 years in the district.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, 13.4, notice of resignation, 2 resignations.
Yes, we have Ilian, third grade teacher at Ridgelawn, and Vincent Podvosikis, substitute custodian district wide.
Right, 13.5, potential action to approve a leave of absence for Dina Mohammed, the lunchroom recess supervisor at Ridge Lawn, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mrs. Lebudzick,
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 13.6.
Yes, we have a potential board action to dismiss a halftime FTE special education office aide.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Lebudzick,
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. Okay, moving on to 13.7, potential board action to approve a contract for the chief school business official for the 24-25 school year through the 26-27.
I'll make the motion.
I will second.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mrs. Lebudzick,
Aye.
Mr. Medina, and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye, and let's see, 13.8, potential board action on resolution reading closed session minutes, resolution releasing closed session minutes and destruction of verbatim recordings 18 months or older. For motion.
Motion.
Mrs. Lebudzick,
Aye.
Mr. Medina,
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 14.0, looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:23. Have a fantastic evening, everyone.